Welcome to Rainbow Soul Vodcast, where our Soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and Lacrosse's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else Rainbow Soul is offered on our website at rainbowsoul.show.
Hi, welcome to Rainbow Soul Soulstrology Forecast. This is Hollis Taylor, and I'm one of your astrologers today. And you can get readings and such from me at my website, which is listed in the description. And
hi there, I'm Bright Hawk, author, astrologer, artist, musician, storyteller. You can learn more about me at brighthawkproductions.com.
And today, unfortunately, so honest truth is that me and Bright Hawk are completely disorganized because we had to pick everything up and take off, and right now we are in Long Beach, California. And thank goodness we have a very reliable, great person at our Airbnb. And we reached out to Bright Hawk to Lacrosse early this week and said, "Oh my gosh, Lacrosse, I have no idea when we'll have time to do this because we have important business to do here in Long Beach." So here we are doing family business. It has nothing to do with astrology, but here we are. Okay, that's why we're here. And no one's hurt. Everything's terrible. Good. Everything's good. But that's why we're here. And Lacrosse was so very understanding because this kind of thing happens to us sometimes, and it happens to him too sometimes, and crap happens. And so the great news about us is that we're all understanding of each other, and we just do our best. So sorry for missing last week. It was our fault. Totally our fault, not Lacrosse's fault at all. Lacrosse was like, "Are we doing this?" And we were like, "Oh, we'd love to, but we're driving."
But here's the good news. We've been doing this for over a year, and it's the first time in over a year that we have missed at all.
Yeah.
So that feels like a pretty big milestone that we've been able to keep it going in a good way. We hope you're enjoying it. We hope you're getting something out of it. Be great to hear from you if you are. Just put a little thumbs up in the comments saying yeah.
Hey, and thanks for supporting us.
We totally appreciate that.
And thanks so much for being here and tuning back in and forgiving us for missing a week. Mercury retrograde, and just shit happens between those two things. Man,
for reals.
How's your Mercury retrograde been?
I'm sure you're ready for it to be over. Which happens this week, doesn't it?
Some people are having a very intense Mercury retrograde, and some people are having a less intense Mercury retrograde. Probably depends on if you're an air sign or an earth sign or whatchabadoodle. So anyway, so here we are, and we're just going to get started. Thanks for tuning in. And we hope to at least try to do it while we're here in California, and then eventually we'll get back to our regular schedule. Okay? And you'll get the normal rain. We know you're missing rainbows in the background. Sorry about that. All you get is Charlie, our sleeping dog. Hopefully he doesn't snore too much.
It's true. Guy can really snore.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath. Let's all take a moment to ground. And just take a moment to feel your feet on the floor, your bottom in the seat. And you can imagine yourself just sort of floating just allowing yourself to float upwards. And as you slowly start to move around in the universe, in the sky, in the dark night sky, you can see many stars in the distance. But of course, what stands out to you most is the big, beautiful moon. And as the moon rays shine on you, and you feel the glow of the moon around you, it is a reminder. It is a reminder of your connection to the earth, of your connection to the universe, of how we are all water. And how the moon pulls the waters of the earth, the waters of our bodies, and the waters of the entire planet back and forth in the tides and the cycles. And the energy of the moon that's mysterious and unknown. The part of the moon that feels like it is connected to all of us. How the moon's cycles affect our behavior, our bodies. Yet we wonder how the magic works, and no one really knows. And we allow the mystery to exist around the moon, and the mystery of our intuition to exist within each and every one of us. And a reminder that each and every one of us has an intuition that is guiding us and pushing us through life. And as we become one with the moon, we can feel the moon's glow hold us in its magical energy, and we slowly drift backwards away from the moon. Pushing back down to the earth. Until we have our feet on the ground and we are staring up at the moon above us, giving gratitude for our connection to the moon. And as we come into our here and now, we feel our feet on the floor, our bottom on the seat, and we wiggle our fingers and toes and open our eyes and come back into the here and now and right here on Rainbow Soul. Thank you, Bright Hawk.
Always a pleasure.
Well, I'm so glad we're able to do this no matter where we are. And so here we are. And I'm sure it's been kind of an intense Mercury retrograde for many of us. And so I just invite you to take a deep breath and go forward with us and follow along in our predictions this week and our awareness and bringing awareness to what you might need to focus on. And if you know, Mercury retrograde doesn't always have to be bad. And oftentimes, even I always try to remember that when shit hits the fan, when shit starts going wrong, or shit's not going the way you planned it, that there's probably some other like good thing gonna happen. So, Happy New Year. I hope that you had a great Happy New Year. And that as we enter 2024, I just want to say there's lots of great things going to be happening. And we'll do our best to be here each week to help you with that. And the first, New Year's Day, frankly, it's a really good day. Really, the strongest energies in the sky are, first of all, Mercury is trining the North Node. So even though Mercury is retrograde, it's in a trine to the North Node. So the stuff that might kind of screw up, the stuff that might, still be happening to you in regards to Mercury retrograde is meant to happen. Like it'll work out okay in the end. Did you ever have a Mercury retrograde moment where you're late, but the other person is late too? Or something goes wrong and then you're like, oh, and it ends up working out great for you in the end. That's kind of like what this will be about, okay? And it's also sextiling the South Node, so it will also have great effects on, on where you came from, or if you're dealing with family or anything like that. It's all good stuff, okay? So that's the good thing to know is that New Year's Day, it's meant, whatever's happening, even if it's kind of Mercury retrograde messiness, it's meant to happen. And and with Saturn, the biggest challenge is that Saturn is squaring Venus, which could be a little bit of some like financial challenges or self-love or relationships. So that, and I say self-love because when I say relationships, people don't usually think about their relationship with themselves, but that counts. Okay? So that's how you want to be thinking about Venus right now. Okay? Venus is in a square to Saturn, and Saturn's about restrictions and things like that. So it might be asking you to take a look at your relationship with others, your relationship with yourself, or your relationship with money or other things, okay? Especially other resources, because Venus tends to rule that, including stuff, okay? And those are the main aspects in the sky on the first. And now that Jupiter's going direct, Saturn is in a sextile to Jupiter all week long. So that's actually also really good. That's been going on. And so I just want to say that I think this is a really great, and I've heard other astrologers make reference to it, but the Saturn sextile Jupiter in the, towards the last week of the new year and the new year and the first week of the new year, the last week of the last year of 23 and the first week of 24, will be very good. Saturn is about restrictions in the system and stuff like that, but it's in a good conversation to Jupiter. So Jupiter is about manifesting things and good luck, and it tends to be a blessing. So the two coming together, I think this is also like, good time to like make commitments to yourself. It's actually several astrologers have confirmed that it's actually a great year to do New Year's resolutions. It's not always, but it is this year.
Yeah, in particular on the 31st. I know our reading starts here on the January 1st, but the 31st is actually a great time for making what you want to make as a declaration for how you want to do your life, how you want to do you. What is your resolution? What are you resolved to committing to? And that energy, when you commit, when you see it, and of course, the best way to set your intentions on a resolution or anything else is to see it as already done, and giving gratitude for it already being done.
Right.
So what is it that you're calling in or wanting or needing? And this is a great opportunity to be very clear about that. Set your intention really clearly. And one of the reasons why is that we also have a grand trine in Earth, which means our abilities to manifest our dreams, wishes, and desires is heightened. New Year's Eve, January 1st tends to be a time when people make resolutions. And like you just said, it doesn't always astrologically line up as a great time of year. But this year, it does. It really, really does. So with the grand trine in Earth, which is involving the sun, the moon, and Uranus. So something unexpected could happen in that regard. And it's in Earth. And so we know that when the Earth signs are present, we're talking about manifestation. And so the moon is in Virgo. So when the moon is in Virgo, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And Mercury is is now out of its retrograde and traveling with Mars in
it's slowing down to go direct, but it will go direct in a couple of days after.
Okay. Oh, it's actually still okay. Never mind.
It's getting there. It's getting
very close. Very, very close.
It's getting there.
So the moon is answering to Mercury, who's also traveling with Mars and Sagittarius. And of course, Sagittarius is a sign about communication. Mercury is a planet about communication. Mars is about action. So we have this action-oriented part of the sky with a grand trine in Earth signs, which is Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus. And so there's some really great grounded energy to help truly manifest your dreams. Instead of it being pie in the sky or feeling like you're grasping for the ethers, this is actually ready to land in your lap. So speak it, see it, think it, ask it, and, be willing to be delightfully surprised because Uranus is involved. So it's a great time to say, I'm willing to be delightfully surprised because Uranus can bring surprises. And as my book states, this is one of the messages in my book, The Dancing Hippo. When you're willing to be delightfully surprised, well, guess what? You get what you expect. So expect something beautiful, and hopefully that's what you create in your life. And then the last thing I want to say is that we have quite a number of T-squares this week. And remember, T-squares are an opposition with the square to the top. And so in this case, we have the moon opposite Uranus, and it's in a T-square with Mercury. So again, there's that conversation with Mercury. What needs to be said? How are we thinking about things? And the moon and the T-square also, remember, an opposition is exactly what it sounds like. The energies are opposite each other. There's no mixing, but the T-square puts at the top, puts Mercury into the role of the facilitator between the moon and Uranus.
I think it's Neptune.
Did I
Moon
say
is
that?
opposite Neptune. You said Uranus, but I think it's Neptune.
The next day it's opposite Neptune.
Okay.
Have I got that wrong?
Well,
Moon, let's
Uranus
look
is
across.
down
We
here in
took our time.
Taurus.
Opposite Neptune. No, so it can't be Uranus.
Right, because it's in Virgo, but Neptune's over here.
Okay.
That's why I was like, I mean, just a few degrees.
Okay.
More.
I missed that. I have it for the next day. Moon opposite Neptune.
Yeah, so maybe you just
With
mislooked at it.
T
Yeah.
squared to Mercury, Mars at the top there.
But it's still kind of the same thing. But what I think is what's interesting about that T square is that you got the moon, which they don't always talk about it in astrology, but every time I tap into the moon, all I can think about is water. Because
Sure,
of the
course.
tides
Rules,
and
Cancer.
la la la.
And right
Yeah.
now that it's high tides and big surf on the west coast here.
Yeah. And it's opposite Neptune, which is Neptune is like the king of the ocean or whatever. And
Titan of the sea.
so it makes you think about like, okay, so there's Neptune and that has its own, rocks and in and outs of the ocean and the moon. And then you have Mercury, which is a messenger of spirit. So like it just makes me think about the waters, especially with Moon and Neptune. And like we just said, there's we're okay, but there's some other areas down here in Southern California that are being threatened by the waters. And and it's not, we're not New Year's yet, but this is on the 1st, and so I just just want to give you a heads up about that. Which is Monday the 1st, okay? And this is the day that Mercury actually stops on the 2nd. It actually stops on the 2nd. Yeah, it stations, it just kind of stands still on this day and the next day. So the 2nd and the 3rd, it's kind of still. So if communication kind of gets halted, just is not happening. It's okay. It's just Mercury is slowing down to go to, and then it'll start going forward, and communication should start flowing then by Thursday. Okay. And Mercury is trining the North Node. So that's actually it really, because Mercury has been in these aspects of the nodes during this entire, pretty much a lot of this, especially the end of this Mercury retrograde. It makes me think about, first it was going retrograde and now it's going forward. And so it makes me think about where you're going and where you came from. So there should be some communication around that, but it will all be good in the end. So just try to remember as you stumble and trip over things that everything's okay, and everything will work out in the end, because Mercury is in the trine to North Node. So it's taking you where you need to go. It just, you might trip a little bit. And then the other important thing is that Saturn is square Venus still, and that will be going on most of the week. And so I'm just going to say that, just be careful how you spend your money. You might be restricted about money, especially just after Christmas. You might have to be careful about how and where you're spending your money.
Right.
And you can see this T square with Neptune a little bit better here.
Yeah, exactly. It
definitely
projects on the 2nd. And then so the T square is with Neptune opposite the moon, and the top of the facilitator, the arbiter of that conversation between Neptune and the moon is Mercury and Mars. So yeah, again, just mindful of excess, like don't overdo things.
It just makes me think of the waters.
Yeah.
Listen to the waters in
and
your
they've
life.
been talking about Monday high tides and stuff like that. So yeah. And then we also have a trine to Pluto. So moon trine Pluto. Pluto is about transformation, and Pluto is the higher octave of Mars, right? So And a trine, of course, is a sweet conversation, a nice blessing between those two energies. So maybe something transforms in a good way. Maybe you have a change in feelings about something. A change of heart could happen. Um, and then, of course, Mercury sextile the South Node. Folks from our past appearing, communications, something that was said comes back and something becomes clearer.
Mm-hmm. And I also noticed that Moon is squaring Mars, so it just makes me think about try not to be too snippy, snappy.
Well, the gentler part of that is that the moon is a void moon, which means it is not as strong.
Oh, good.
It's shedding. Remember that we just had a full moon last week, and now we're shedding. The moon is shedding, and so it's a waning gibbous moon. So it's not as strong. And of course, Virgo is all about nurturing, being taking care of things, evaluating things in a good way. The other ruler of Virgo is Chiron, so it can be very healing potentially. Virgo is mutable earth. So when the moon is in Virgo, mutable earth versus Cancer, the moon rules Cancer and it's a cardinal water sign. So mutable earth is different for it and it's not as strong. I'm just going to say. So that means your emotions won't be as strong, which is good. It means you could take a little breather.
Mm-hmm. Could help make this Mercury retrograde and Mercury start to go direct a little bit easier,
a little smoother, a little more flow, maybe.
Yeah. Now I did notice that Venus starts to do it on the 2nd, but it's perfect on the 3rd. So somewhere in the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Venus is in conjunct Jupiter. So this could very much be again about stuff or money or material goods. And Jupiter is very much well, it's very much about us, our philosophy in life and spiritual philosophies. It does rule Sag, and Venus is in Sag. So it kind of gives me a Sag energy about travel and stuff. And it is about stuff. So I also was thinking about like getting rid of stuff. So in conjunct Venus, it could very much be about, you can do a lot of growth the more stuff that you get rid of. I'm just laughing at this because, yeah. Okay. And so Venus and Sag, that's, it's also about relationships and self-love. So really focusing on those kinds of things and bettering relationships, bettering your relationship with yourself will lead you to a good place. But it could be hard. It's not going to be easy. But if you can do it, it will be a blessing because the inconjunctions are hard to overcome, but you can. It's less about it, and it's more about pushing. It's more about just trying to find the way. And Saturn is still sextiling Jupiter, but it's coming into a stronger sextile because they're getting more perfected, as you will.
Mm-hmm. We have another T-square because you have the moon opposite Chiron, and then as it gets later in the day, it'll be T-squared to the sun. So again, that would be moon having moon is opposite Chiron. So opposite is opposite. There is no mixing. Chiron has been in Aries, and is this the one that is also changing from retrograde to direct?
What, Mercury?
Chiron.
Not really.
Okay, I thought it was changing at some point, but I must have been mistaken.
It's already direct.
It's already direct. So recently it changed.
Yeah, it must have been a while ago though. I think it was in December.
Oh, okay. So moon opposite Chiron with the sun being the facilitator of the conversation about, are we taking good care of ourselves? Are we doing the things that we need to do? When you have Saturn sextile Jupiter, there's an opportunity to really make sure that everything's in place. Structures are in place to support the growth that you want to see happen.
Yeah, and you said the moon's still void here, right?
Sorry, thank you for saying that. The moon is now in Libra. And so when the moon is in Libra, and Libra, of course, is a cardinal air sign, Libra is ruled by Venus. And so the moon is answering to Venus, and Venus, of course, is in Sagittarius.
Yeah. Venus has a lot to play with in this week, I think. Venus is a big part of the story this week.
I agree.
And here I just happened on the 4th.
And I was just gonna, thanks for leading us into that, because I was just going to say, and the moon is about to conjunct the nodes.
Right. And it's in a perfect opposition to the north node, but it is connected with the south node. So it's really about where you came from and stuff like that.
Yeah, and south node is their old folks, or past previous friends, ghosts, as some people say, connections that you haven't revisited are suddenly getting revisited.
Old ways of doing things, stuff like that.
Right. Old things are popping up that are getting a chance to get cleared because the moon is moving through, it's lighting it up, and now there's the opportunity to move forward in a good way.
I thought it was interesting that Mars moves into Capricorn, and as it's moving into Capricorn, it pretty much comes into a good sextile with Saturn. So it's in a sextile, so that's good. So action could be helping you relieve restrictions or rebuild things in a good way. I just feel like Saturn in Pisces is less about restrictions and more about rebuilding or like reshaping things, reshaping the system and things like that. Saturn in Pisces doesn't always feel like sometimes Saturn in like Capricorn, for instance, feels more like restrictions, okay? Even Saturn in Aquarius feels more restrictive than it does in Pisces. In Pisces, it feels like, okay, now everything is kind of falling apart and falling to the side. And so now it's like water. And you know how water builds structures is it slowly adds sand to things. And it might kind of take this down a little bit, but like if you think about water and sand, like at the beach, and the way like the water builds river walls and things like that. That's how I always think about Saturn and Pisces. And with Mars, you can think about your actions kind of doing that in your life, kind of you starting to take actions that start to have good repercussions in your overall system, especially because Saturn is sextiling Mars, yes, but it is who moves into Capricorn, which is about systems, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. But Capricorn is also, Saturn is also sextiling Jupiter. So I think between the two of them, we're rebuilding in a good way.
That's my hope. Fingers crossed, that's my hope.
Right. And I did notice that yod, and I thought maybe you might mention that, Brighthawk, that there's a yod pointing at the moon in Libra.
Yeah.
You can see it right there.
Right.
The light colored yod in the background with Neptune and Uranus at the base. And they're sextiling.
Wow.
So, and they're pointing at the moon in Libra, which makes me go relationships. You said Venus is the active element in the sky this week, and that's just absolutely what Venus is going to point to. Yeah, and with Neptune, it makes me think again about water and
And of course, you're pointing at the Yod is pointing at the moon in Libra, and of course, Venus is rules Libra. So interesting,
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and um, this energy, I'm sure relationships will definitely
Shift or
be highlighted.
mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with Moon and Libra, it just feels like it's gonna shift relationships as well. So I just thought I would point that out. On the 5th, Saturn is well Saturn is still sextiling Jupiter and Mars, and there's a lot of action with the other than the sun squaring Chiron. So the sun will square Chiron on this day, which is Friday, January 5th. Um, and the sun is in Capricorn, of course, and Chiron's down there in Aries. So they're going to square each other, which could be a little bit of a challenge. Maybe, especially Chiron usually represents old wounds or things from your childhood or wounding that came from earlier in life that maybe you're trying to overcome now. Chiron is also the wounded healer, so that also could have a lot to do with like maybe you need to move away from your wounding and into your healer side.
Mm.
And so that's probably what that's happening there is the sun is asking you to move into the healer side instead of being the victim of whatever happened back then. Chiron's asking you to step forward as the healer instead, especially since Chiron is direct.
Mm.
And I noticed the moon plays a big role on this day. It's
Yeah, well, we've got that T square because you've just come off the nodes, and the conversation is opposite. So the moon opposite the south node in Chiron, and Pluto facilitating this transformational conversation.
mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we're on the 5th. So the moon is moved into Scorpio. Um, so Scorpio, of course, is ruled by Mars and Pluto. The modern ruler is Pluto of Scorpio. Scorpio's fixed water. So the moon is happy in water. The tides are big. And of course, Scorpio is very spiritual. It can sometimes be a keeper of secrets. It can definitely have insights and awareness, can see through things. So the moon is also in a trine to Saturn, and it's in a sextile to Mars. So what does that mean? Well, we've talked about how the moon, when it's in water like this, is you're going to feel more deeply. It's going to be a little more intensified because it's as it moves throughout the day, it'll become opposite Jupiter. Opposite Jupiter, Jupiter's big, right? And again, we have that Pluto conversation of transformation, and you have Jupiter. I already said that. Moon sextile Mars. Okay, so this day, I have to say, on Friday, the moon is intense. It's in intense placements. It's very active, and so there are good aspects, there are positive aspects, but it does mean that you might be feeling things more.
Yeah, and with it I noticed that I think it's called a minor trine or something like that. The moon is trining Saturn and they're both trining Mars up there at the
Mm-hmm.
top. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like a blue triangle. So that could be really a blessing about your emotions, especially if you allow it to flow. You should never push your emotions sideways. Never sit on your emotions. It's never turns out well. I'm just saying. Um, it ends up exploding later or whatever happens. And so something not good usually happens as a result. But this could be a good expression of your emotions, a positive expression of
Mm-hmm.
emotions. So this is actually a really good thing. And on the 6th, which is Saturday, the Chiron comes into a perfect square with the sun. And so again, the sun is asking you to be the healer instead of the victim. Okay, so instead of the victim of whatever happened to you before, it's asking you to, to be the healer. And Mercury is squaring Neptune. Mercury comes into a square because Mercury's now started to move direct. And it's going back over the area that it was in retrograde. So it's probably trying to bring that stuff to resolution, but it's squaring Neptune. So there could be some illusions that change, some ideas that are changed.
With the moon and Pallas Athena conjunct, don't you think that also lends to what's a better strategy?
Yeah, if you're tapped in, hopefully.
Yeah.
And although it's in conjunct, you can see the moon and Pallas are they're opposite Uranus.
Yeah.
So that could be hard because Uranus is usually the revolutionary one. And Uranus, but it's going to be the moon and Pallas Athena those are your emotions, emotional strategy. Also, I would say be careful of manipulation because moon in Scorpio, Pallas Athena in Scorpio, it's like, but hopefully it's in conjunct Chiron. So that's what makes me think like maybe you could be working out some old wounds, but that's emotional manipulation really in the end because Uranus is retrograde. And so, and then the moon and Pallas Athena, strategic emotions usually is emotional manipulation, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So you could be on either side of that equation from the looks of it.
Yeah.
So mindful of who you might be wanting to manipulate or mindful about who might be trying to manipulate you.
Yeah, just paying attention to that kind of thing. And it will probably have something to do with Chiron, which will be old wounds, childhood wounds, because you can see that they're in conjunct Chiron. So it is manageable though, because it's an in conjunction. So you just have to come aware of it. So even if you find yourself manipulating, sometimes we manipulate people to help them feel something for a particular reason. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you're just doing it, and you don't really even mean to do it. And so just becoming aware of it and shifting the behavior could be really helpful. And sometimes people are doing it to you and they aren't aware of it. Not, a lot of people really take the victim stance with narcissist people. But the fact of the matter is that most of the time, if you ask any psychiatrist, narcissists don't usually know what they're doing. They have some awareness of some things, but they're not really aware of the amount of manipulation that they're doing. They're doing it because and then people think that they're only thinking about themselves, which is kind of true, but what's really happening is that they're so insecure that they're doing things to keep walls up around them. And so what I feel sorry for about narcissists is that they can't have authentic, deep connection with people. And that's the problem. So because they can't have that deep, authentic connection with others, then they put up these walls and they do a whole lot of things to block you. And so this could very much be dealing with narcissism, especially because Chiron is involved and it's in conjunct. But if you just educate yourself a little bit about narcissism, there's all kinds of great YouTube channels out there from good psychologists that will explain how narcissism works. And instead of taking the victim stance on that, because you can do that if that's what you want to do, or you can come to an understanding of them. And when I come to an understanding, it's easier for me to, number one, hold boundaries. Number two, recognize when they're doing things and not take it personally. And number three, it's easier for me to back up and put them, like you, Bright Hawk always says, put them in the right orbit. Okay. And so that means sometimes they have to go to Pluto, which is as far away from you as possible. Okay. Especially if you had them in Mars, okay, or Venus or something, or the moon, even worse, right? Okay. And so hopefully you weren't too emotionally involved with them. And so I'm just saying that this could very much be dealing with a narcissist manipulative behavior. But if you, in conjunct like that, tells me become the healer, recognize what it is. And one of the ways to deal with narcissism, in my opinion, is to educate yourself about narcissism.
100%. Totally agree with that.
Yeah. The more you understand it, the easier it is to deal with it.
Yeah. And at this point, the moon will be a void moon. Remember, the moon is shrinking. It's a crescent moon now. We're getting closer to getting to a new moon. And when we're shedding, it's the letting go of the layers, that whole thing.
So that also aligns with Chiron.
Yeah. And then it's in a trine to Neptune. So that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's positive. And yeah.
Yeah, so I think whatever happens this week is meant to happen, and it's meant to push you into a better you. So even if it feels hard sometimes, it feels difficult, it is meant to help lead you to a better version of yourself. And Mars comes into a perfect sextile, or almost perfect sextile with Saturn on Sunday, and I think Monday it'll be perfect. Mars will sextile Saturn, and that's more about action, about what you're trying to build and what you're trying to accomplish. And that's really putting you on path to good news and getting shit done, getting it taken care of. And that's pretty much what's happening there. And with Mercury moving direct, things should start really moving along.
Yeah, so the moon will be void in the morning, but by mid-afternoon, it'll be in Sagittarius. When the moon goes into Sagittarius, Sagittarius, of course, is mutable fire, and it is ruled by Jupiter. So the moon is answering to Jupiter, which it is almost opposite of. So that conversation is happening across the circle. And the moon is in a square to Saturn and a trine to Neptune still. So the square to Saturn could potentially be a challenging conversation about structures. And of course, Jupiter wants to make things bigger. So what's going on, and is it going to work, and how to make it work. And the trine to Neptune, I always just think your dreams will be blessed.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of great blessings on this day, on Sunday the 7th. That sounds like mostly really good stuff there. The biggest challenge is Neptune square Mercury, which is really, again, I come into illusions. Mercury is the messenger of spirit, coming back across something that was already visited with Mercury retrograde. And with a square, it makes me think about be careful what you hear or say. The messages coming in may not be completely, it could be illusionary. And you could also be sharing your dreams. It's going to depend on who you're communicating with, but so it could be dreams and visions, which could be really great and well said. And it could also be that with a square, it could be a little bit challenging to decipher what's dreams and visions, what's good stuff, and what's a square. So you might just need to be paying attention. So pay attention to what's really true.
Right.
Because Chiron's still in that square to the sun. So it's still asking you to step forward as a healer. And so sometimes that is recognizing that what someone is saying is not true.
Truth.
And sometimes they don't even know they're lying. So, you just shrug it off or whatever. But it's just good to know that what they're saying is not true.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, and I think that's pretty much it for the 7th, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A good week.
It's a good week. It's mostly good. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like it's a little less intense than the weeks previous.
It was so intense. We missed Rainbow Soul. Holy cow. So, so just everything's going to be okay and we'll get through this. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to do a little tarot reading. This is the Love is Love deck. It's the Pride deck. And I'm going to pull 3 cards for you now. It's a Pride deck that you can easily find on, I think, like Amazon or whatever. So the first card is one I haven't had in a while, which is the Page of Pentacles. Which I happen to like this card. This card is very much about having all you need, and to some degree, maybe having more than you need. But having all that you need and being totally in your power. And kind of being and holding your power. And I recognize that this person comes in different shapes and sizes. And I think that that was done on purpose, that, this person is a little bit bigger than what we normally see in cards. Everybody's, skinny mini. Thank goodness this deck is not like that. And you can see that this person is, and I think that that's a reminder of that resources don't always look the same. They could come differently to you. And this is about having all you need. And maybe it may not look exactly the way you thought. And this is a reminder of that. This is a reminder of things coming to you, maybe in different ways, but none the same. It's exactly what you needed, right? Especially Mercury retrograde, what we've all just experienced with that. Maybe some crap has happened and you're like, well, that wasn't how I seen it, but that works in the end. Okay. Right? Like, I'm kind of like, well, I did want to go do some traveling. I guess I get to travel to Long Beach. Okay. So, so there you go. Okay. And it's nice to be in a little bit, take a little break from the wintry weather in Colorado. And so, so that's what I'm saying about this is like, this could very much be about what just happened that is now brought you into maybe something a little bit better. And instead, this is the right now. This is about very comfortable relationships. But this is a reminder that sometimes we only see, like when you look at this picture, you probably notice the spilled milk right away. But you can notice these two are not severely focused on the spilled milk, which is great. But this is really about not focusing on the spilled milk. So, like, even though there was some crap that went wrong, this is about focusing on the milk and cookies you do have. So, this is about like counting your blessings and counting that, even if you are in an LTR, long-term relationship, or in any other kind of comfortable relationships, that the person is just there. And sometimes we can just kind of, there's some comfort. Not that you should take your partner for granted, but there's some comfort in just knowing that your partner's going to be there, right? So, and having that reliability and having the reliability of knowing that there's cookies and milk for you. And that's really what this is. This is about like count your blessings, try not to focus on the spilled milk, instead focus on the good stuff. Okay. And that's pretty much what this card is about. Sort of like the last one, but the last one was to remind you that it comes in all shapes and sizes. And in the future, this is a great card. This is about celebration. This is about coming together. This is about making new things, bringing, because you can see she's pregnant there in the picture, and they're sort of celebrating that in a very beautiful embrace and hug with each other. And the hope for something new with the child in the background, and the clear, this is a pride celebration or something, and they're having a big celebration, and that's really what this is about in our future. So be prepared for the celebration in your future. So again, remember, notice the blessings that come through, and notice that they come in all shapes and sizes in different ways. And it doesn't always have to be the way you expect. It could be something else. And as you go forward, make sure you notice all of the good things. Make sure you're happy and count your blessings for all the great things that happen. And try not to get upset about the spilled milk, and instead focus on the good stuff. And as you're going forward, remember that there will be a time of celebration and birth of new things. So new things are headed your way. That's really what this is about in the coming week. So I hope that reading is helpful for you.
It's a good reading.
Thanks. I think that was pretty good.
I think that feels very positive.
Yeah, it's a very positive reading.
And we wish you all the very best. You're going to have a great week. It's going to be amazing. You get what you expect. So let's go with it's going to be amazing. We're willing to be delightfully surprised by how sweet this life can be.
And if you have any interest in getting an astrology reading for the coming year, we can take a look at what the year is going to bring for you personally. We'll look at your chart and I'll show you what I'm looking at and how I'm coming to those conclusions. Okay. So, my friends, I hope you have a fantastic day. Please like and share or comment. We appreciate that. Really helps us out a lot.
We'd love to hear how it's going for you. So do let us know, and we wish you all the very, very best.
Yeah, and keep in touch. We want to know what's happened. What happened to your Mercury retrograde? Oh my goodness. How did it go for you? All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's Soulstrology and subscribing, liking, sharing, and reviewing. We hope you enjoyed this dose of Soulstrology and encourage you to embrace the week ahead with an open mind and heart so that you may integrate the deepest of lessons from the stars. Take a moment to step outside and honor the planets, stars, and moon in the sky with your heart. Integrate the messages that resonate and leave the rest for someone else. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember that you are perfectly unique human with an exclusive star map of your destiny, your soul purpose, and your heart's desire. Thank you again for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.